I was having some annoying creaking on this bike from the saddle seat post area, so this was my approach. I first took out the seat post, cleaned the seat post seat tube, reinserted the seat post, took it out for a ride, still creaking. My next thought was probably the saddle clamp itself. I took apart the clamp, cleaned the rails of the saddle, cleaned the clamp, and put some fiber grip on that. Retightened. Still a lot of creaking. By the way, we'll refer to those videos about the seat post and the clamp at the end of this one. My thought was probably the saddle itself. Now I have two of these saddles, so I'll show you two approaches. One, a temporary approach, and another, a more permanent approach. The first is a temporary fix. Flip the bike upside down using a light lubricant so it'll penetrate. Apply a drop or two to where the rails enter the saddle itself. Again, this is a temporary fix. You'll have to reapply when the creaking returns. The second approach is a permanent fix. Permanent fix using epoxy on the saddle rails. I didn't want to use it on the saddle we previously put oil on, because oil will interfere with the adherence of epoxy. So using a duplicate saddle, this is what we did. What you'll need is a clean, dry saddle. If it's previously been oiled at the joints of the rails and the saddle, you probably don't want to use it. It's almost impossible to get that oil out again, and it will interfere with the epoxy. Also, if this is wet, you really want to dry it out thoroughly. Any moisture that's caught above the epoxy that you use could stay in there and cause rust. You need a cloth to wipe off the saddle rails where they attach. I use epoxy 30. The reason I use it is relatively cheap compared to some others. Runs about $13.50. It comes in two tubes, and you mix in equal amounts the resin and the hardener. The thing I like about it is it takes 30 minutes before it begins to set. Most other epoxies come in either a single tube, and after a while you just can't get that tube open again and the thing dries up. Also, other epoxies set in about 5 minutes, which doesn't give us enough working time, as you'll see, to do what we need for preparation and addition to the saddle rails where they enter the saddle itself. You'll need a hair dryer, we'll show you how to use that, and then some scraps. Either some kind of wooden sticks to mix it. I have a couple of lollipop sticks. This one I've trimmed a little bit, great for application. An old top lid. This happened to go to some peanut butter, and I screwed it in with a screw so it doesn't blow away when we heat up the epoxy. And a little piece of wood so when we go to apply it to the rails, I can hold it under the stick and catch any drips. Clean the rails where they enter the saddle itself. Now we'll take our epoxy equal amounts. Stir for about a minute or two. Then with your hair dryer or whatever kind of heat gun that you have, Alright, this lowers the viscosity, makes it easier to handle. And we'll begin to apply this all around the rails where they enter the saddle. Glue gun or acetone will get rid of any little drips. Alright, now we let it sit overnight and test it out. If you have questions or additions, please put them in the comments below. Let us know if you've run into this type of creaking problem and how you've solved it. Subscribe to keep up with our latest videos. This is Tony of Tony 10 Speed. Safe cycling.